Have you ever thought about society as this giant, sprawling machine, and every part of your life, from your family to the government, is like a little gear, turning and meshing together? Well, today, we're going to pop the hood on that machine. We're going to explore a really powerful way to understand how it all actually works. It's called functionalism. All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with the absolute basics, the building blocks. Then, we'll look at it all through a functionalist lens, see how things have changed over time, dig into some of the hidden purposes of it all, and finally, bring it all back to you. So, first things first, what are the fundamental structures that, hold our world together? The things that organize our lives and take care of our basic needs? Well, sociologists have a name for them: social institutions. So what is a social institution, really? Just think of them as the established systems that keep society humming along. They're the organized ways we've come up with all their rules and expectations, to solve problems and meet our needs as a group. Now, there are a bunch of these, but sociologists usually focus on these 5 big ones. The family raises us, education teaches us, religion can give us meaning, the government keeps order, and the economy, well, it handles all the stuff. Just think about your day so far. I bet you've bumped into every single one of these already.
Okay, so this leads to a really big question, right? Why do we even have these things? What are they for? What is their actual function in the grand scheme of things?
And to get at the answer to that question, we can turn to a major sociological theory called structural functionalism. It's basically a framework for understanding how all these different pieces of society fit together to keep things stable. The guy who first came up with this idea, Herbert Spencer, had this amazing analogy. He said, think of society like a human body. Each institution, like family or the economy, is like an organ. You've got the heart, the lungs, the brain. They all have a specific job to do, and they all have to work together to keep the whole body alive and healthy. Then another giant of sociology, Emil Durkheim, built on that. He wanted to know what the glue was that held this body together. He called it social facts. Basically, our shared values, our laws, our customs. It's all the invisible stuff that binds us together and keeps the whole system from just flying apart.
But here's the thing. This social body, it isn't set in stone. It grows. It changes. And the jobs that our institutions do have evolved in massive ways over thousands of years, as our societies got more and more complex.
You can actually trace this path pretty clearly. For the vast majority of human history, we were hunter-gatherers, living in small groups. Then a huge shift. We started farming and herding animals. A few thousand years later, the plow comes along and supercharges everything, creating these big agricultural societies. Then boom, just a couple hundred years ago, the Industrial Revolution hits. And that brings us to today, to our post-industrial world, which is all about information and technology. Now, I want you to look at that last column, level of inequality. See that pattern? As societies got more complicated and created more wealth, they also got way more unequal. It starts super low with hunter-gatherers and then just skyrockets in agricultural societies, with this huge gap between the landowners and everybody else. And this chart here gives us a perfect, specific example of that growing inequality. In those big agricultural societies, a lot of the heavy labor, like using a plow, was done by men. Over time, that increased their economic and social power, which led to this sharp rise in the cultural belief that men should be in charge. Okay, so we know institutions have functions. They have jobs to do. But here's where it gets really interesting. A sociologist named Robert Merton came along and pointed out that these functions aren't always what they seem. There's often a lot more going on beneath the surface. So first, you have what he called manifest functions. These are the easy ones. They're the obvious, stated, intended purposes of an institution. It's what it says on the tin. But then you have the latent functions. These are the hidden ones, the unintentional side effects, the stuff that happens as a result of the institution, even if nobody ever planned it that way. Let's use college as an example. It makes this super clear. The manifest function, the obvious reason you go to college, is to get an education, right? To learn stuff and get a good job. But what about the latent functions? It's also a place where you meet tons of new people, build a network, maybe even find the person you're going to marry. It also unintentionally creates a whole job hierarchy based on who has a degree and who doesn't. But of course, not all of these consequences are good. When a social process leads to negative outcomes that actually threaten social stability, Merton called them dysfunctions. So sticking with our education example, this could be stuff like really high dropout rates, or students graduating with a ton of debt and not being able to find a job. So what's the big takeaway here? It's that when you understand these different kinds of functions, you realize that society isn't so simple. It's got its intended goals, sure, but it's also full of hidden side effects and even things that are flat out harmful. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. Honestly, this functionalist perspective is like a new tool for your brain. It's a lens you can put on to look at any part of society, from your own family to the global economy, and start asking some really important questions, like what is this supposed to be doing? What are its hidden side effects? And how is it maybe failing or even causing problems? And that leaves us with a pretty big question for right now. We're all told that a college degree is essential in our post-industrial society. But as the cost keeps going up and up and up, could that be creating a massive dysfunction? Is the very institution that's supposed to create opportunity actually blocking it for a lot of people? Is it making inequality worse? That's the power of thinking like a functionalist.